Let me introduce the panellists that are with us this afternoon. To my left is Sharon Williams. Some of you may know Sharon. I think she's a regular speaker here at Notre Dame. Sharon is CEO of Taurus Marketing, a very successful integrated marketing strategy firm here in Sydney. Sharon's a high-profile media commentator and contributor, a regular blogger. I could see her tweeting there earlier this afternoon, and has a very strong sort of view of brand presence and how your brand reputation is important. So I'm sure Sharon's comments will be great this afternoon in terms of the discussion and debate. Next to Sharon, on her left, is Will, who Phil just referred to. Will runs a specialist healthcare division at Edelman Public Relations, an agency I started my career with. Edelman is the world's largest independent PR firm, and I have to say on behalf of all of you, Will really has gone above and beyond. Not only has he had a baby this week, but he's got 2 big pictures due on Monday, he told me. And I know how much pressure that puts on a consultant. So, Will, great to have you here as well. Next to Will is Richard Herring. Richard is head of APN Outdoor, one of the largest, if not the largest, outdoor advertising firm in Australia. Billboards, bus shelters, airport advertising. Anything that goes outdoors, I guess Richard looks after that. Richard, great to have you here. And the last on our panel, but by no means the least, is Glen Frost. If you don't know Glen, get to know Glen. He's a working journalist, but also is the publisher and editor of the PR Report, which is one of the key newsletters, obviously, in the PR industry here in Australia, with over 7,000 subscribers, I think, and growing. Glen, so welcome to Glen as well. So there are our 4 panellists. What we wanted to do is obviously make this as engaging as we can and as productive for you all in the room here. So we thought that we would at least kick off the discussions with a topic around, must be close to your heart. And I'm going to pass to Sharon first. What would be 2 to 3 things that we as employers would look to from you, and how can you make sure that you provide what we need when you're coming out for those first interviews, if you're in 3rd year next year, and if you're in 2nd year in 2 year time? So let me pass to Sharon and just see if she's got some tips and advice she can present to you in terms of what employers look for from graduates.
Well, guys, firstly, thanks for turning up on a Friday afternoon. I think you're showing one of the core values that we look for when we're hiring, and that's perseverance and tenacity. So congratulations to you all on this beautiful afternoon on turning up here. I run a PR agency and have been running that in Sydney for about 15 years. And young people are one of my passions. So we formulated something called Taurus Fast Track, which hot houses and fast tracks young people through to business success. So we've put about 400 youngsters through this program. I have 2 in the office every day, 2 young interns who intern. And obviously I'm looking for the brightest and the best to hire and take on permanently. So one of the things, and you've got that already, is turn up. And I think the 3 things that I look for when those gorgeous youngsters come round the corner of my office on the North Shore is I make a judgment within 30 seconds of you walking into my office as to whether I'm going to take you on or not. Okay?
How about this guy?
He's failed immediately. So the reality is that when you turn up for a job, why do I make a judgment in 30 seconds? I'm going to make a judgment on whether you've been on time and whether you've been respectful in turning up on time. I'm going to make a judgment on whether you're appropriately dressed and what you look like. I'm going to make a judgment on your confidence level in terms of how you greet me. And I'm also going to make a judgment on how much you've learned about my business before you come in and see me. And by the time I shake your hand and we've entertained those first exchanges and I've taken you into the boardroom, I will have made a decision as to whether you're somebody worth speaking to and continuing the conversation or not. Does that sound harsh? Do you know what? When we pitch a PR story, we've got 30 seconds on the phone to sell the story. So if you can't sell to me in 30 seconds your potential, then PR is a very harsh world to live in. So they would be my tips.
Great, Sharon. Will, have you got anything to add from a perspective of a multinational agency? Is there anything else you guys would be looking for when you're looking to hire graduates?
I would certainly build on some of those comments, but just before I do, if anybody wants to ask me any questions today, you can tweet me on Will Collie or check out my LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn just under Will Collie as well. The first thing I would probably suggest is that if you're coming into a larger agency, you've got to have a good understanding of what the agency actually does and the way that it actually works. Edelman's a good example of one of those agencies where we have a technology, a corporate, a consumer, a healthcare practice, which is mine, and now a new technology and sort of digital specialty as well. And so when you're coming in, potentially for an internship or for a new role, have an understanding of what the business actually looks like. If there is an area of the business that you are more interested in, be clear that that's the area that you're interested in going to. One of the biggest challenges that I face is finding graduates and newer recruits who are interested in healthcare. It's typically something that people tend to get into 4, 5, 6 years into their career. It's what I did. I started out in events, out at the Royal Agricultural Society doing media for the Easter show and the 5 food shows, and I travelled overseas for a while, and then I went to PPR in Melbourne and spent some time in their consumer team. And I came and worked very quickly for a consumer team up here as well, and then I figured out that I didn't really like consumer. I got an opportunity to look at health, which is where I've stuck for the last sort of 8 years. And so if you, going into that interview, have an understanding of where you would like to be, or even just an interest in where you would like to be, I'll be putting your foot forward to be clear about that. The other thing that I would be doing, and this is kind of building on having an understanding of the business, is also ensuring that you have your social and digital profile in check, because I will Google you, I will search for you on Twitter and LinkedIn. I know that there are stories about how employers look at your profile. I do. And it makes a big difference to the decision that I make before you even get in the door as to whether I will actually have a conversation with you. And I want to be able to have people on my team that have great social lives and have really great, I guess, social profiles as well. But I also need to make a judgment about that kind of person before I go on. I think we'll maybe take questions later. Is that what you want to do? Or?
Yeah. We'll hold questions just for the moment. We'll go through the panel once, and then we'll start throwing it open to discussion from the floor and questions. That's all right?
So just underpinning that, a really good, clear understanding of not only what the business does, but also what part of the business you think that you would be best placed to be a part of.
I'd be curious to hear what Richard has to say. Richard obviously would be looking for skill sets, maybe a little different to some of us in the PR field, but from the advertising and sort of media and marketing perspective. Richard, do you want to just touch on what you be, even if it's just the quality you're looking for and the social skills and things like that, rather than the technical skills?
Yeah, I think that's actually very right. I think that we, in some ways, you probably assume, and certainly on the first meeting, you assume a lot of technical skills through the education things that you would have been through. And it's interesting what Sharon says. I think you do make judgments very quickly. And a lot of that is around the fit. So around whether the interviewer thinks that you actually fit the environment and the culture of the business. I think it's very important that as someone going for a job, you do try and get a feeling for what the culture and the type of business you're moving into is. So I think that that's a very important part. I think, knowing the business is very important. And it reminded me of we had a business called Collie Outdoor some years ago, which merged into the business it is now. And I was about 12 years ago, this young fellow came in for a job and I interviewed him. And after about 5 minutes, he's saying how interested in design and outdoor he was. And I realised he thought we were outdoor furniture. I had to say, mate, do you know that we're... He said the interview quickly finished, we moved on. So know where you're going.
Glen, you might have an interesting perspective here as a publisher of news from the PR industry. What would be your observations on how you think students here graduating next year could enter the marketplace, as you would speak to both in-house and in-house and agency people? Can you give us a perspective on that, please, Glen?
Thanks, Chris. Look, I guess people on the panel, whether they're recruiting PR practitioners for in-house roles or like the two people here, they own PR agencies or directors of PR agencies. They're really looking for people who've got 3 things. That is knowledge, networks, and enthusiasm. Now, when you first begin your career, it's very difficult to talk to people who own agencies about your knowledge and your networks because you're starting out in your career. You can, of course, be incredibly enthusiastic and, as Sharon said, turn up on time. But I'd just like to pick up on one of the points that Will made, which was about the fact that he will Google you, he will look at your LinkedIn profile. And I think this is where you can demonstrate some credentials in the first 2 points that I mentioned of having knowledge and networks. particularly if you volunteer for an organisation, whether it's a faith-based organisation that you're part of, and that may be to do with the university, or if you're part of a sports-based organisation, or whether you're helping a family member, for example, if you've got brothers, sisters or cousins who are at school and you're helping the school with their social media. Because when Will and Sharon Google your name, if you have done some public relations or events or social media work for one of those organisations, your name will show up in their search. And that gives you a conversation to have with these two people when you walk in that door. And I think that's very important, that you can talk the language that they're talking about, because to all intents and purposes, you are an active practitioner in public relations once you've started doing that. So I hope that's kind of a bit of a tip and a bit of an insight into particularly getting the first job.
Thanks, Glenn. I think it's fair to say that the comments that have been made by the panel apply no matter whether you're in communications, any of the disciplines, marketing, advertising or public relations. You know, employers are always looking for the same thing. And we touched on some of them this morning: passion, energy, commitment, those sort, and you can show those even though you haven't got world experience. Let's throw it open to the floor now then, just for a short while. Who's got a question they'd like to put to the panel?
You said that you like people who are outgoing and go check their Facebook pages and stuff, like you check their profiles and on the social media sites and whatever. You said that you like people who are outgoing and have a lot of have a social life, right? I got told a week ago, or a couple of weeks ago, I was applying for a graduate position, that they do, like a lot of big companies too, they go look at your Facebook and they check your profile. But if they see like a beer bottle in your hand or you're out clubbing or something, they reject you.
Yeah, do you want to work for a place like that?
No, but
I don't.
I wouldn't, no, I wouldn't, but...
I'll take you.
Yeah.
Please. No, but... No, but I'm being serious. Like, I wouldn't like it. But
so
should we be cautious of that? Like, should we be cautious?
Yeah.
They're going to reject us just because our Facebook profile. Because I changed it all to private, so no one could find me.
Yeah. Look, I have. I've been with Edelman since January this year, and for the 3 years before that, I was with a big pharma company called Sanofi. They're probably number 2, going to be the biggest pharmaceutical company on the planet pretty soon, and they're very conservative. And I'll give you my my crash and burn example, where I made a Twitter joke as Senior Manager External Affairs for Sanofi Australia, as the spokesperson for the company, before Christina Keneally was booted. I made a joke saying, I wonder if Christina knows that her media team are referred to as the KK clan, which they are, right? And I had my head torn off for it, absolutely shredded for it. And it was a pretty valuable lesson for me, where I thought I was making what was a pretty well-known overview during a political time, which my company completely did not want me to be saying. And so I think there are extremes, right? You need to be aware that some of the things that you say may be taken out of context or not the way that you intended them to be. But I think you also need to be very clear that you are a person who exists, that the way that people engage with online and with social and with new media has changed really very, very quickly, and a lot of companies haven't got up to speed with how those kind of things work. Typically, I think you'll find agencies and in-house roles are very, very different because you tend to be exploring different types of roles. But if someone has told you that you need to, take photos of you down at the pub or wherever, then I think you need to reconsider whether that's the kind of place that you want to actually work. It's important though, don't think that agencies are laid back. That most companies just have different approaches to the way that they communicate. And there are other things that you can do to make sure that you protect, you can make your profile private, and you can do a whole bunch of things to ensure that people that may see your profile don't, if you wish to do that. But I'm going to look for you, and if I can't find you, I'll wonder why.
Yes, I actually speak in the media about online personal branding, and I work with CEOs who want to be kept out of the press, right through to independent schools who want to teach their year 12s to behave on Facebook. And I think the key thing you want to take away is that your digital resume and your personal brand is about being yourself with purpose. So it's no good trying to be conservative if you're not. And you're young, so you're still setting your own personal boundaries. But we will check you out as employers. And even as my age or anybody on this stage or anybody in this room, we have a personal brand, and that is about being oneself with purpose. And your digital resume is very much a current thing. You know, when I was going for a job at your age, we had a printed resume. I still get resumes and print them out. I get about 80 a month. And I'm looking at the personal brand of each of those individuals, and I'm giving those resumes roughly about 5 seconds each. Okay, so you've got to be aware of your personal brand. And remember that Facebook is like a tattoo. If you put your bits and pieces up on Facebook and they're not appropriate, they stay with you for a very long time. When you're going for that job in 10 years' time, and you're perhaps less conservative than you are now, you really don't want something to go and bite you in the bottom. Okay?
There are about 25,000 people in the public relations industry in Australia at the moment. There are probably about 200 to 250 active PR agencies with 3-4 plus people. So you've got a lot of choice. You are in a perfect time in a great industry where whatever personality you feel you have, there's either an in-house or an agency role for you. What I would say is that you do need to research the market. So talk to as many people as you can about what agencies are out there. And one thing that I would suggest is that if you think there is a particular brand or organisation or even subsector that you're interested in, and let's say it's digital photography or something like that, phone up the people that do those things and ask them who their PR agencies are. Ask them who their in-house PR people are. Because that will give you your first step into having a conversation with those organisations about whether there's a role for you. But it very much starts with you being honest with yourself about what it is that you want out of your career. And I think as everyone on the panel said, you've got to be honest with yourself. Because a large part of your job, if you're either in-house, you have to sell an organisation. If you're an agency, you have to sell your clients' products and services. So when you go and have your conversations with Edelman and Taurus, find out who their accounts are, because you're going to have to be selling those products and services. And if you're passionate about those products and services, then you have an easy conversation with Sharon and Will. But it very much starts with you, blank sheet of paper, three words. What industries do I like? What people do I like? What products do I like? And then follow up on all of those to do your own research.
My question's for Sharon. You say you look at resumes for 5 seconds. What makes you stop and pay attention to one?
A typo. If you want to think that you're going to write for a living, then I'm afraid you failed at first base. So you'll go straight into CRM as a future whatever. So I'm sorry, if you want to write for a living and you send me a typo, then it's a bit like, you know, a builder asking to build a house and he's already had one fall down. So if you want to write for a living, you're going to have to write properly to me and in beautiful English, or in appropriate English to me. And the other thing is when you put your cover letter and you've addressed it to Taurus Marketing, but you've left the name of the last company you sent your resume to, so actually you've addressed the envelope to Sharon Williams, but I open it and it's Dear Bill. Again, you've got no attention to detail, so I don't want you in my company. Next is the first paragraph, usually at the top of the resume. The photograph is a great one. If you're looking like you want to be, in penthouse, then you've just applied to the wrong agency, because while I'll enjoy looking at you, you may not be appropriate for my business-to-business agency. Okay?
And I totally can't hire you if you put that photo on. I have to throw you away.
Will hire you immediately.
So why did you hire her, Will? Oh, no, I don't know. Go on.
So, look, there's nothing wrong with good-looking people, but you've got to be appropriate for the agency, okay? So I need an appropriate photo in terms of the photos that come, and you won't believe the photos that I get sent. So typo the right name, the right photo if you're going to put a photo on, and then your first paragraph usually at the top of your resume, and resumes are pretty standard these days, usually tailors your resume to me. So I've just had 80 resumes through for a job, a new admin manager in the office, and one lady sent me a paragraph at the top that said, I really want to work in a pharmaceutical business, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a PR agency. She's used the wrong resume. I'm sending it to Will. So, in that first paragraph, she had the opportunity to sell to me why she wants to be at Taurus. So I've checked your website. You've got a typo on page 3. I really think, you've really impressed me. I'd like to work with some of your clients. I've watched you in the media. And I really think that I could support you and your business. Would you please meet with me? And you know what? I really like that. I like someone who's taken the initiative to build their resume to me. So that's a 5-second decision.
Thanks, Sharon. Richard, would you have any examples of CVs or interviews or people that approached you that have stood out, and if so, why, that you could share with the group here?
Look, not specifically, but I think that, in general it's the type of role you're going for, and we'd look for different styles of people for those different roles, and certainly, half of our business is in sales, so we're looking for more extroverted type people, I suppose. And also, as a word that Sharon used before, tenacity. So people, it's interesting how many people come for an interview. First of all, don't ask you any questions. They sort of expect you to be doing the interview, because I think an interview is absolutely a two-way process. They should be asking you as many questions as possible about your business, yourself, and the direction of the business. And then also the fact that you don't hear from them after that, that they sort of hope that you'll call with an offer for a job, as opposed to, following it up and seeing if there's anything else you can provide. You enjoyed the conversation, you weren't sure about this and that point, and I've followed this other thing up, and just some sort of, to show that you're interested in the role and really want to work there. I think that's a really important thing. A lot of people, I think, come to interviews thinking, I'll just go to the interview, and if I do 100, I'll get a job type thing. And as an employer, you're looking for someone who is really, really must have that job, and it's exactly what they want. And if you can display that genuinely, I think that's a really important discussion point we had before. It's got to be your own personality, it's got to be absolutely genuine. You will stand a far better chance of being successful.
Hi guys. Firstly, thank you for coming out. I'm sure you're very busy. My question is more to do with how you guys approach to hiring people who are young. So, for example, I'm sort of a firm believer that just because you're young shouldn't be a barrier to being not hired. I've applied for a couple of jobs in the past, which have, I've applied and thought I would have a decent chance, but I've been rejected because I'm young, which I think is a bit of I might be wrong, but I personally think is a bit, I felt a bit annoyed by it. So I just wanted to hear what is open to all of you, sort of how you guys approach to hiring young people, even though their qualifications might be just as good, if not better, than people who are older than them.
How young are you? You're 20, right. So I'm 31, and at 30, I was the director of the biggest healthcare practice in the country. And if you apply that same application to clients, I am trying to convince people who are 20 years my elder to hire me and my agency. And I'm constantly going in and up against people who have been in the industry for 10, 20, even 30 years longer than me. And I'm walking in with a really young team, right? We are one of the youngest teams in the country, but we're very, very good. And the reason we're so good is because we have experience. Because we've been out there, for me, it's for sort of 10, 11 years in my career, getting as much experience as I possibly could. And when I went to RMIT down in Melbourne, studied BA Public Relations, and while I was there, I did 4 internships, 2 in my second year, 2 in my third year. The fourth one gave me a job in Sydney up here. And so when I applied for those early roles, it was because of the experience that I had had the whole way through my university career that allowed me to get my new job. And that was kind of tough, right? So I'm from Wagga. My parents live in Wagga. I had to move to Melbourne. I had to live out in the sticks because I couldn't afford to do anything. I worked 2 or 3 different jobs. I had a part-time internship, all those kind of things go on at the same time, which can be painful, really, really painful and hard to do. But it makes such a huge difference to the consideration of a candidate when they're coming through. And actually on the way out here this afternoon, I had a quick chat with Teresa Nappy. You can write down her name, Teresa Nappy. She is the person who reviews all of your CVs when they get sent to us. And if you haven't had any public relations experience, it doesn't matter how beautiful your writing is or that you have targeted your CV to us. If you have no experience, you will be tossed. Because there are so many CVs that are coming through at the same time, and we want to see that you have a demonstrated experience and a commitment to your career. So I don't know if you have had that kind of experience before, but my recommendation to you would be to just try and get as much experience as you possibly can throughout your degree and not wait until the end of it to say, all right, so now I've been bartending for 3 years, which was awesome, but now I'm going to try and get a job, because it's going to really hurt you when it comes to that sort of employment opportunity.
I've got a number of companies that advertise in the PR report, and they're predominantly recruitment agencies. And what they tell me is they often look for a round peg that fits the round hole, or a square peg that fits the square hole, that kind of thing. But what they also say is that you probably are not feeling comfortable with the interview process until you've done about 15 interviews. So you could be really fortunate and go to your 3rd, 4th interview and you're the square peg for the square hole, and you're very lucky. But my suggestion to you might be, go to as many interviews as you can, have a thick skin, and don't really feel worried that you're not getting the job or you're getting rejected for various different reasons. That's just part of life. You have to have a thick skin. These guys, I wouldn't want to ask them how many clients they pitch to and what their win ratio is, because sometimes people are very touchy about those sorts of statistics. But and in public relations, you need to really think of yourself as either a hunter or a gatherer. In that, Will is very much selling, so he's out there hunting for clients. Same as Sharon, she's also managing a whole agency as well. But the idea that the interview process is interactive and it enables you to tell your story. So you telling your story may take you some practice to be able to do that. And that's why you should have interviews with family and friends, get them to ask you the hard questions, say do 4 or 5 of those, then start going out in the workforce and having more and more interviews, but not feeling too worried about not getting the right job, because it does take time and it's a very competitive market. You just think of all the number of people who are now coming to Australia from Europe. I certainly, through the announcements that people send me at the PR report, the number of people from European countries that are in recession who view Australia as a great place for a job. That's certainly something that I'm not saying Sydney and Melbourne have been flooded with POMs or people from other European countries, but certainly that is an issue at the moment.
But in saying that, those types of roles tend to be sort of
more senior
senior account managers and account directors up. For a graduate, I think that there are good opportunities for people, and we're always looking for good graduates, as you guys are. It's just the volume of people that are coming through. The other thing, they get it wrong. People get it wrong. We pitch and we lose, and we know that we were better than the rest, but we still don't get it. So maybe the application to you as well. You might have been one of the strongest candidates for whatever reason. They've made a decision. The other thing to take into account is that employers don't always get it right. We don't always know exactly what we want. For whatever reason, there might just be something that puts a candidate, for whatever reason, there might be just some sort of common ground that works better with someone else. So I wouldn't take it too hard.
I think the important thing is when you're graduating, don't try and be something you're not. That's the most important thing I could say. When we have interns that we're looking to hire, or students that we're looking to hire as interns, or graduates we're looking to hire as employees, we don't want you to think that you can do strategy. We don't want you to think that you can do amazing things. What you've learned here is some technical expertise. What we're really looking for is attitude. Attitude will kill aptitude any day of the week. If I line two people who've got the same sort of aptitude, they've studied, they've got a degree, it's attitude. And I think some important points the panel have made is look for that point of difference. It's your brand. Fit your brand, do your research. Line up what your brand is. Literally write down, what is my brand? What are my brand attributes? And then align that with the agency or corporate in-house role you think fits. Then you're more likely to have a success rate, but don't be anything you're not. We're not looking to hire specialist strategic thinkers at this stage. You'll learn that through literally the school of hard knocks when you get into the workforce. Sharon, is there anything you would like to add to that? Is that a fair call?
You asked me what the first 5 seconds or the first few seconds of a resume. The next things I look for are any leadership activities, if you've been captain of something, if you've driven something, or things you've done outside of your usual life. I hire on your educational life. I hire on aptitude, attitude and passion. They're the 3 things I look for. So I want to know if there's something outside of your education that you're passionate about. Because I don't know about you, but I want to get out of bed every morning wanting to, and loving my job, which I do. So you want to do something that you love. The other thing is I then look at where you've done internships, because it's a bit difficult when I'm looking at 80 resumes of people your age and your experience, if you have only worked in a bar. And I've done the bar, I've had 3 jobs, and when I was at school and all the rest of it. So I really admire people who do that and work in lots of environments to earn money. But you need to have shown me on the resume that you love PR so much that you've done it for nothing. That you've put yourself out and you've got an internship somewhere, or you've helped mum or dad, or you've helped a local firm with public relations, so that you actually know what the application of public relations is before you come to me. So that will be, you will go on the one pile if you've done an internship over somebody who hasn't. Okay, so that's really worth knowing.
I've just gotten my first role in PR, which is very exciting, but it's with a boutique PR agency, and it's a small agency. And I think it's going to give me a lot of good skills, but I do think in the future I may want to work at bigger agencies. And I just had a question as to whether that's possible, whether that move is possible, whether bigger agencies consider people from smaller agencies, or whether they just hire from other well-known agencies, or how that works.
You're gone, your career's over.
Yeah.
It's gone.
You come to me and then you move to him, and you go to him and then you move to me.
So do people do that? Is that how it works?
There's this really beautiful 7-year itch. What you see, check out the awards of agencies, right? And you'll see certain agencies are doing beautifully, absolutely beautifully for 2 or 3 years, and then everybody in the agency gets too big for their boots and goes, you know what, I'm better than this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to either start my own agency, or I'm going to go to a small boutique agency, and we're going to kill it. We're going to go, and everyone drops out. Everybody dumps out, and they go to this other agency, and then that agency that you were in falls to pieces, and then the other agency does beautifully, and everyone comes back, and then 7 years later, everybody sort of falls down. It kind of circles. You are in a great place to start your career, right? The other thing about starting in a boutique agency is that you tend to get more opportunity to start off with. And this is probably one of the points. In regards to a graduate role, a lot of the time you're going to be a doer. You're going to be photocopying. You're going to be binding. You're going to do really crappy jobs.
Not in my agency.
But if you do them really, really well, and if you are dependable, I'll give you an example. The grad in my team, on my way out, I said to her, I need 5 copies of this on my desk for the 10 a.m. pitch that I have on Monday morning. Before I got here in the cab, they were on my desk, and she'd email me. That is what her job is. And in 3 months' time, when I review promotions, she will be promoted because she's the best binder out there, not because she can write. That all comes through her career. She's done exactly what I needed her to do as part of her role. And so while it's really great to make sure you're able to sort of be involved in upper style activity, there's no rush. There's no rush, and particularly in those very junior roles, you can move through very quickly. In a boutique agency, you can do that because you're pretty much everything to everyone. If you choose to move out of that into a bigger agency, you can and get a feel for that. If you want to move back, it's all open.
Glenn, you have a comment to make?
I do. I met a fantastic PR practitioner who came to help me at some conferences I did about 5 years ago. She just left Deakin University. Now, she wouldn't have got a job with Sharon because her English was not very good. She did get a job with a Sydney agency, and she left after about a year because she was doing a lot of work like photocopying and filing, and she wasn't very happy with it. She felt her skill was pitching stories, and she went to work for an agency in Melbourne where she was very much pitching what is essentially product placement. You take fancy photos of anything from jewellery to phones to power drills or whatever it is, and you try and get that in a trade magazine or a glossy magazine. And she found that she did very, very well at that. And she's now opened up her own agency. It's called Dawn to Dusk PR. She's based in Melbourne. Her name's Sarah Finlay. She was in your position, 5 years ago. Very, very energetic person, but it took her working for a boutique agency to realise what her skill set was. So you may have doubts about what you've done, but it may turn out to be the best thing that you've ever done because it tells you where your skill set is.
Good advice, Glenn. And I think if I could add something to that, there are a number of forums, networking groups for young graduates and young practitioners. You may or may not know some of them, but I think the PRA runs one. There's one called Networks. You really should be thinking about, in the last stages of your studies, going to those events. You'll meet people, you can ask questions. Life's about asking questions, as we said earlier. Ask them their experiences, get the recommendations. Because I think, as the panel is saying, it's not one size fits all. Some people will be better suited in-house, some better in agency. The only way you're going to know to even start to think about that is to go and talk to others and learn from their experiences. So sign up and get into some of the networking groups that are available for young practitioners, etc.
This is for the whole panel. Do you feel that the PR industry was hit in a big way after the GFC, and have they recovered?
Sure. Well, I'm happy to answer it, but, okay, if you'd like me to. As you know, I do run an agency, have worked for both multinational agencies, including where I started with Will's agency, Edelman, work for a boutique agency in Australia, now work for a boutique agency that has an international partnership. Our agency was very much skewed towards multinational business back in 2008-9. 70% of our business was MNC, multinational corporations. It absolutely ripped our business to pieces in Australia. We went from 25 people to 10 within 3 months. We put everyone on a 4-day week. The GFC had a dramatic effect because it impacted on marketing budgets, particularly with American companies. I'm sure no one here will mind me saying that American multinationals put their head in the sand. The moment Lehman Brothers broke and the GFC kicked in, every American-based multinational just pulled their marketing budgets, trimmed them back. As an example, we had a budget of some $300,000 a year that went to $10,000. We just had to leave it. It went from 300 to 10. They said, just do our media monitoring for us. That was all. Now, that was a major multinational brand. I'll pass to the panel and see if Will or Sharon has any experience, but I can tell you it ripped us to pieces and it taught us some lessons. And we've now balanced our skew more towards local businesses as well as multinational. So, yes, and I still think it's having an impact. I think we're in a better place here in Australia than many markets. We've got colleagues in Britain that are still struggling. The US is still really struggling. This economy is doing okay, but I think it's fair to say it's still tough times, and it could be another 3 to 5 years before the market really goes back to where it was, in my experience, certainly pre-2008. Does anyone else have any other views? Glenn, please.
A bit of shameless self-promotion. I publish a top 20 trends report every year, and I put a lot of research into that, speak to people in the industry, and I try and look at what sectors, broadly speaking, are going to do well. And I think if you're interested in making a move into anything to do with technology, because we've just seen Facebook have a huge amount of money thrown at them from their IPO on on the American stock market on NASDAQ. So technology is still a space where people want to invest money, and when people are investing money and launching products and launching businesses, they want PR, and they want good PR, and they want lots of PR, and they want it consistently all the time. So part of all that money that Facebook got, they've recruited the number of adverts for, you know, various types of comms roles at Facebook has just gone up. Now most of those are in the States, but they are also recruiting in places like here. I think you can look at legislative change. So for example, if we have, we now have a carbon tax, that will at some point ignite what is broadly called a green revolution, green tech revolution.
Yeah.
So again, there will be companies who think up and create and invent smart devices, and they'll be knocking on doors and going, right, we've got this fancy pants solar panel, we need some great PR, we need to do great advertising. So I think if you look at certain changes that are happening broadly in the economy or in society, then those will be places to go and get work. And it's a question of doing your research, talking to various different people. So another trend at the moment, for example, is you know, the Aussie retailers are doing it tough, but overseas retailers are launching here. Is it Topshop?
Yeah.
Topshop.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you know, a very, very interesting development. And I don't know which agency they hired. I'm sort of sure that they've got an agency, because that's the first thing you do. Rather than hire an in-house person, you hire an agency when you first launch in a new country. But there's lots of new products, fashion products, hair care products. They're all launching in Australia because there's a growth market here and people are buying on the web. I think obviously for Australia the media industry is suffering. You know, we've seen journalists being laid off at Fairfax and News Corporation. Yes, he's from News Corp. The big industry, of course, big growth for Australia has been in mining, and that is still going to continue. People are still going to want to roll out big mining projects. So, and mines need equipment. So, again, there's another subcategory. Mines need to move where they dig it up from to where they export it to. So, transportation, shipping, those are still going to be growth industries. We have probably got another sort of couple of mini booms in a few states in things like coal seam gas. There's going to be a big agricultural boom, because as China gets richer, they're going to want more steaks and all the stuff that Aussie farmers, we've already seen Chinese companies buying Aussie land and Aussie farms. So again, there's an agency in Melbourne, I forgot what they're called, it's owned by Alexander Downer and
Oh, yeah.
is it Bespoke PR?
I can't remember, but it's... Yeah.
So one of their clients is Highway, which is a Chinese telecommunications company that supplies networking equipment. They were banned from supplying equipment to the NBN. Now, they've hired this Aussie PR agency or lobbying agency to try and turn around opinions on them. So sometimes, you know, when something happens, there's PR on both sides. You can be kind of helping Jerry Harvey to you know, pick his brand up out of the sort of, you know, he hasn't had a really big social media presence. You can help him do that, or you can help the foreign entrants in the market. So always think there's opportunities on every angle. But very much, I think the thing to do is look for change. Wherever there is change, there is PR opportunity.
Just one quick point I'd make on the, whether you're in public relations, advertising, marketing, any kind of communications type field, I think that one of the strongest things you are ever going to have under your belt is relationships, whether that's with your client, whether it's with other key stakeholders, whether it's with other people that are within the industry. Those relationships are what really allow you to be successful throughout your career and within your business. And back to that GFC question, when ad budgets were being cut, the art for a public relations agency was to investigate how we started to pull that traditional spend from above the line into the PR activity. So going to a marketer and saying, well, look, your budget for advertising last year was $1 million. This year it's 200,000. Why don't you give us 30% of that, and we will generate for you value that is far in excess.
That's funny. We're doing the opposite.
I know, I knew you were going to say that. But where that sort of sits is across the board, and that's just in media. And if you think about a lot of the work that we try to do in regards to stakeholder engagement, if you're trying to lobby, if you're trying to get change made through government, a lot of that is around the relationships that you have with people in having a sit-down conversation and saying, listen, this is what we're trying to achieve. You are influential with this particular group of people, and in healthcare, this works all the time. How can we work with you to communicate with this particular audience through your own channels, as opposed to going through advertising or traditional media channels, which are now getting smaller and smaller and smaller at a cost-effective space.
Healthcare is going to boom because everyone's getting older. As everyone gets wealthier, they want better healthcare. And in this country, you can't advertise if you're a pharmaceutical company. So PR is your solution.
Yeah.
It's getting, on average, like we did a Google and a Facebook program last week, and I had to budget about 25 grand a month for Facebook and Google advertising, which relatively is only small for a traditional advertising budget, but if you're pulling that into PR, that's a pretty big chunk of the coin that you want. It's all
right.
And it's expensive if you get it wrong.
Yeah. That's exactly right.
Guys, the message is you are in a prime position to get a job. You are in the most wonderful profession to be able to get a job. There's the rise of PR over the next 10 years, I think, will be extraordinary. And if you can choose the right industries and focus in on an industry and specialize in something, you have chosen very wisely. Okay, I want to just send that message of hope out to you. You have really chosen wisely.
Yeah, no, that's true.
We have a couple of final interesting announcements to make. We have our Mumbrella Twitter Award winners, and we have our Maboozy T-shirt of the day competition to announce as well. So let's start with the Mumbrella Twitter winners. As you recall, Mumbrella is offering a package of products to the value of $250 to the 5 best tweets for the day. The judges' decision, I'm actually going to bring the one that I put down as number 5, not because it was the last in the top 5, but because I thought it wasn't the most interesting, but it certainly has become now. This one came from Chris McHale. Is Chris here? Chris? The pigeon is looking for a new career path. I reckon that just sums up this afternoon. This pigeon, I tell you what, you could learn from it. Perseverance, tenacity, get in your face, make sure you connect with the right people. So for the tweet, the pigeon is looking for a new career path. Chris McHale wins one of the packages. I don't think we have the packages here, do we, from Umbrella, but they will be handed out afterwards. Number 2, Karina, you may not have asked your question, but you actually won one of the tweet awards for the following tweet. You must focus on the integrated story across all mediums to engage with the target audience. Well done, Karina. I think that tweet sort of sums up the fact that we were talking a lot about integration, and I'm sure that some of my panellists here agree that you can't be siloed when you go into a client's business or when you're actually in the corporate role. You've got to make sure that you have all your agency partners talking to each other. Number 3 was Beth Regateri. I don't know whether Beth's here. Beth was awarded for the tweet, I think it was when Q was speaking this morning, James Quinlan, Hip Hop Life Lessons by J.J. Quinlan. So to Beth in her absence, congratulations to her. The 4th one is Isabella Sofferini. Is Isabella here? Where's Isabella? Well done. Isabella, yours was a great line. Obsession has never been so stylish. Obsessed to be the best. Well done, Isabella. A really good sort of summary of the fact that today was about trying to help you be the best you can be. So, aim for the best, aim for greatness, and you'll always sort of achieve more than you ever thought you could before. And the last in our 5, for sheer volume of tweets, was Izzy McNeil, who just was tweeting her head off all day long. Izzy, you there? Put your hand up. Congratulations to you, Izzy. A round of applause. So to all of those winners, on behalf of Mumbrella, you receive a pack, which I'm sure Philip will make sure is distributed to you next week when you're back here at back at uni. For our other award, which was the Maboozy T-shirt of the day. Josh, do you mind walking up here, please? Josh was chosen as the winner. The front of his T-shirt doesn't say a hell of a lot, but Josh, you want to just turn round to the audience and, if I'm not mistaken, the words are, knowledge is king. I think, congratulations to you, Josh. You win the $300 worth of vouchers at the Maboozy store. A great line. The judges decided knowledge is king. In everything you do, it's all about the knowledge you can gather and how you can package that and represent it in your life. So.